Now we've got the Democratic nominee for Florida's 27th congressional district and one of the most flippable districts in the entire country, Annette Taddeo. Thanks for coming back on.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be back with you.
So first off, how are you with the hurricane happening right now? Are all of your friends and family okay?
Yes, we are fine. Miami was spared the brunt of it, but obviously we are very concerned about everyone else and throughout the state, not just on the West Coast, but also now in Orlando as well. I went through, my parents' home was completely destroyed during Hurricane Andrew. So this is actually something very personal to me. And I know how tough it is to go, not to go through it, but also the rebuilding, all of the damage that we will be seeing in the next few days. It's really awful. And actually, the insurance crisis that Florida has had for many, many years. It's been one of the fights I've had at the Florida legislature. And I am sure the lack of action by the Republicans is going to come to fruition now when people start realizing what a mess we will be in after this storm.
I do remember I had friends who were involved when Hurricane Sandy hit, and I was living up in New Jersey at the time, and it was just crushing to see what people could lose so quickly. So I hope that everybody gets the help that they need. Let's switch over to the state of Florida and some political news here. Florida obviously made national news about a week back when Ron DeSantis shipped 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard as part of a political stunt. He was clearly doing this to get his 5-minute cable hit on Fox, and that stuff works with the base. But there was reporting that the stunt did backfire with one key voting bloc, which is Latinos. One commentator even likened it to Fidel Castro relocating Cubans in the 1960s. From your experience, how was that stunt received?
Terribly. And I can tell you that we had a precursor of this plane load, precursor 2 weeks before that most people are not aware of, which is the lieutenant governor went on Spanish radio and was caught saying that they were about to fill busloads of Cubans and taking them to Delaware. Of course, Delaware being the state that President Biden comes from. So it was all political to begin with. But for me, this was nothing new, because in the Florida legislature, I was actually the one sitting in the Florida Senate in a committee that started the questioning, because I found it at the back of the bill. You put things on the back of the budget to hide that are, just little things that, of course, this was a historically big budget. But having said that, there was a request from the governor's mansion for $8 million originally. He ended up getting 12, but I was the one that immediately noticed the words illegal and alien in anything, and my antennas go up. I started asking questions. What is this for? What are you going to do? Who are you going to take? How are you going to take them? All the questions are on the record, both in committee and then on the floor. And then after that, a bill came about, which is a lot of people are not aware. There was a bill that was passed to accompany the budget request. And that bill specifically, I fought, and I was the leading person fighting it, because I said, okay, so you want to do this. You want to transport immigrants who you claim are undocumented to other states. But, where does the money come from? And of course, I was the one that found out that it was coming from COVID money. This is interest earned on the money that the state received to help people through COVID. And instead of actually using it to help people, they held on to it, earned interest, and then they're using this for this now to pay for this. But I'll go further. There were also amendments that I attached to ensure that we would not end up sending people who are fleeing communism, because Republicans love, especially in my district, which is 75% Hispanic, it's in Miami, they love to talk about freedom in Cuba and Nicaragua, Venezuela. And here we are. First, they were saying that they were going to take Cuban Americans by bus to Delaware. And then they had to go to Texas to try to find a plane load full of who? Venezuelans. Venezuelans are fleeing communism and the Maduro regime. So my amendment was to protect anyone fleeing communism and put these Republicans, that claim to care so much so that this year there was a bill that was passed that was signed that said that we are going to celebrate Victims of Communism Day. And the day they picked was November 7th, the day before the election. If that's not politicking on the pain and suffering of people fleeing communism, I don't know what is. And guess what? My opponent for Congress, Maria Elvira Salazar, totally silent, claims to be all about fighting communism. She has not said a word about the buses full of Cubans. She has not said a word about the plane full of Venezuelans. This is completely unacceptable. And this is the fakeness and the fake outrage against communism that they claim, but they really want it to continue because that's how they stay in power.
Against communism until it's time, against people having to endure the horrors of communism until it's time to actually help people not endure the horrors of communism. Just digging into this a little bit more, admittedly, I'm a little ignorant on this topic, but as far as I've been told and read, even some immigrants and some Cubans who are now citizens are opposed to immigration. But do you think that a stunt like this, where DeSantis just completely undermines the very humanity of these people, do you think that's enough to push even those Cubans, even those people who'd normally be anti-immigrant, away from DeSantis?
Some, yes. And I will tell you that obviously there's a percentage of the Republican Party that is extremely Trumpian, and
they just eat it up.
Yeah, the hatefulness, the nastiness, the forgetting where they came from, including, again, Maria Elvira Salazar, Marco Rubio, you name it, the lieutenant governor. These people, their parents came fleeing and were given the status of someone who was a refugee. Right. And I came when I was 17 after my father was kidnapped by the FARC, which is a Marxist terrorist group that was funded by the Cuban regime. So all of us have our stories. All of us in our community know how difficult this is, and to behave this way and to treat kids and parents, as though they are second-class citizens, as though they are not in a situation that is so painful for them that they're willing to risk their lives through the Central American jungle to come here. So many of them are dying trying to come here, and to behave this way and to use them as political pawns is completely unacceptable. And I will tell you furthermore, now with the hurricane and people realizing all of the help that we need, all of the costs, all of this, people are saying, hey, maybe that $12 million should have been used to help people pay for the insurance costs that has gone up so high because, again, we haven't resolved the issue. We haven't, Republicans don't like to talk about climate change and how these storms have gotten stronger and stronger because of it. So there is so much of this that is going through people's minds, but specifically Hispanics in Miami are the ones that are not extreme, are definitely waking up and saying, what is this?
Yeah, I think that point that you made is a great one, that all of this money is spent on such naked, brazen political posturing, when now just 1 week later, when people could have actually used those funds to help them when they've lost everything, well, that money's gone because it's been reallocated to a bunch of bullshit political stunts. You brought up your background. Has it been more difficult for Republicans to kind of paint you as they would normally paint Democrats, given a background that's basically predicated in its opposition to a Marxist regime?
Absolutely. It's been very tough for them. That's how I get to represent a district in the state Senate where I made history as the first Hispanic Latina Democrat that made it to the Florida Senate in our history in 2017, got reelected. I also was the first Jewish Latina in Florida history in the Florida legislature, and we're gonna make history again. I will be the first Jewish Latina in Congress, but more importantly, all of us know that this is an issue that has been used against us over and over. And I am someone that has always believed in fighting back and not taking it. I am the small business owner. I'm the one who meets a payroll every single week. I am the one who knows what people are going through and how tough it has been for us small business owners to make it through these tough years. And it is not the policies of the Republicans taking us backwards. It is those of us who are trying to find solutions. When I'm running against somebody that voted against the price gouging of the gas when we needed it most, when I'm running against somebody who wouldn't even vote to put more baby formula on the shelves, who voted against the reduction or the cap on insulin, a bill that I at the state legislature has co-sponsored every single year. These are the issues that are affecting us, including, by the way, she voted against the infrastructure that helps us not get flooded. With every storm, it's not just a storm, it's any rain, anything. So I am running against someone that is completely against our community, whether it is on immigration, whether it is on fleeing communism, whether it is on our democracy. And January 6th, she voted against. So these are the things we're running against. And I am going straight out and saying, you know what? You're the one taking our freedoms away. My commercial, we're up on TV. We have been up. This is our second week. And my commercial very clearly tells my story and says, I'll be damned if we're going to stand here and let you take away our freedom to choose, take away our freedom to go to school like my daughter and not deal with the terrorism that they're having to deal with because they are concerned for their safety. And of course, the freedom for us to have the democracy we hold so dear, which is the transition of power and being able to vote and then elect our own leaders.
Just one more point of irony where the same people who are condemning communism are the same ones right here at home trying to ban abortions, ban books, ban the acknowledgement of the existence of LGBT Americans, ban drop boxes and polling places, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And so it's just this cognitive dissonance that's always managed to be pretty convenient for them.
That's not freedom. That's not freedom.
What issues are Hispanic voters or Latino voters most focused on? Because again, like throughout the rest of the country, it's kind of this like elusive thing, and people had assumed in the past that it's solely the issue of immigration, and then there's been this reckoning that it's economic issues. So since you've been on the campaign trail, what issues have you seen that Latino voters, since I believe that makes up about 75% of your district, yes, what are they most focused on?
Well, look, we do live in the area of Miami, which is right now the most expensive place to live in the country. More expensive than New York or LA. Yeah. That's how bad it has gotten here. And part of it is because we've had 20 years of Republicans and policies that have not invested in affordable housing, have not invested in workforce housing, have not invested in fixing the insurance crisis, which raises prices, have not invested in infrastructure so that we can actually get around this town and have the transportation that we deserve. So there are so many reasons why people are concerned about that, but they are also concerned. And again, I am a small business owner and somebody that understands, but also their top of mind is the freedom to choose and women's rights, because even in the Hispanic community, we do not like the government telling us what to do, the government and politicians making decisions that are very difficult decisions and should be made between a woman and her doctor and her family. And that is a key issue that has popped up. And of course, safety, gun safety, and the fact that I am running against somebody who does not believe that we should ban assault weapons. I've been a sponsor of this. I am the daughter of a military man who fought the Nazis in World War II, fought in Korea. He was in the U.S. Air Force. And I can tell you, he taught me early on how to shoot a gun, but he also taught me the importance that guns of war belong in wars, not in our streets, not at our kids' schools or at the grocery store or at the movies. And that's what we're fighting against. And people have that as a top of mind because remember, we are very close to Parkland and all of us have been through it. And it's a big, big concern in our community.
Let's switch over to another major issue, and that's obviously the issue of these Republican abortion bans that are being passed across the country. I believe it was in Ohio just this past week. It was reported that another child, another 10-year-old, had to flee that state for reproductive care. Obviously, if Republicans have their way, they'll be able to enact this nationwide abortion ban. How has Roe and reproductive rights, the fight over reproductive rights more broadly, how has that changed the calculus in your district?
A lot, because again, it's government intrusion in our lives. It is something that many voters never thought would happen. I mean, there was always this fight and the political fight, but to actually have it overthrown and to not have it be the law of the land, it has become front and center. And there couldn't be a bigger difference between me, who wants to codify Roe v. Wade and would vote to codify it, and my opponent who again, I'm waiting for her to say something, which means she's supportive of the fact that they want to actually do the opposite and make it the law of the land to completely outlaw the termination of a pregnancy. And I tell you, as a mom who worked very, very hard to have my daughter and had to go through a lot, so many of us have had the experiences that they are trying to put our lives in danger. I had an ectopic pregnancy, and I remember how horrible it was when you are so excited because you want a baby so badly, and then you find out it is not going to be. But not only that, your life is in danger now, and you got to hurry and go to the hospital, and you got to do this because it's already very much way past the time of safety and all of these things. And now you have to go to the government and politicians to actually allow you to save your own life when you don't even have a viable child within you. You don't even have something that will eventually become a baby. These are the things that are very, very frustrating. And to be seeing these cases of little girls who are raped, who physically, if you speak to any doctor, physically, it is extremely dangerous for any woman to carry a pregnancy, let alone a 10-year-old or any child who physically is not, their body is not developed enough to carry a baby to term, and so many complications. I just think it's awful that they would go this far and that the government is going to dictate to a child after they've been raped or a situation of incest that they have to carry the pregnancy to term.
I think it's such a good point, too, that you make in terms of when these pregnancies have to be terminated because of issues that are beyond their control, because of health complications. A lot of these women want to have these babies, and Republicans paint them to be some that it's just some off-the-cuff decision that just some liberal woman just decides, you know what, I'm not going to have a baby today. I'm going to have an abortion. Say, why the hell not? Then I'll go to Starbucks right after. But it's not that. And these are crushing decisions. These are personal decisions. And these are decisions where her own life might be at risk. And so I think there's just this major disconnect, this major gap between what the Republicans are saying is happening and the reality of these situations, which are traumatic and not at all how they're painting them to be.
Yeah, no, and let me add with regards to the new report of a 10-year-old who had to leave the state. My opponent voted against the ability to travel to another state. And that, again, that's not freedom. That is the government telling you you cannot travel outside of your state because your state decides to outlaw something. Now you can't go to another state and have a medical procedure, a private, horrible decision for most people. I mean, this is just, to me, it's appalling that this woman, Ms. Salazar, who I'm running against, would think it's okay to take away that freedom from women.
Right. Not only is it such an egregious restriction of freedom, I mean, preventing our freedom to move about freely in this country, not only is that bad enough, but she's basically saying that, in effect, when a 10-year-old rape victim is trying to terminate her pregnancy to save her own life or to preserve, the rest of her life, that 10-year-old baby has to be subjected to give birth to her rapist child, or in some cases, to give birth to her own brother or sister or cousin. I mean, that is just the peak of inhumanity. And I know that they can hide behind this language where it's just like, oh, it's a travel restriction. But in effect, what it is telling 10-year-old rape victims that they have to give birth to their rapist child. And that is just like I said, the peak of inhumanity.
And you and I know that people with resources,
of course,
will
still be able
find
to
a way.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is the child who's 10 years old, the person who has no resources, who really needs help and is in no capacity to have a child, to maybe mentally, maybe economically. I mean, those are the people who will not find a way, who these kinds of draconian kind of laws are going to affect the most. And most of them are minority women who are African American or Hispanic. And again, representing a majority Hispanic district. The other day, I was talking with an elected commissioner in our community who is a lifelong Republican. And she herself told me, this is crazy. She's an older lady, and she said, you're not going to tell me that my granddaughter will have to do whatever the government says if she's raped? I mean, this is the response we are getting from a lot, even Republican women who are saying enough already. What is this? And a lot of parents as well, men who have girls and who are saying this is insane.
So I want to pan out a little bit. This House, the House election coming up is obviously going to be on a razor's edge this election cycle. Your race is the closest one in Florida. If yours is the tipping point race, what do you want voters to know in terms of what's at stake? Like, what does a Democratic-controlled House look like versus a Republican-controlled House?
It means a democracy. It means exactly everything we have fled from, so many of us. And that's what we are. We are fighting for a right to choose. We are fighting for a right to succeed, for a right to run your business, for a right to the American dream. But more importantly than all of that, if we cannot make sure that we don't have a situation just like we did on January 6th, where we saw many of us who came here from other countries. When we saw it on TV, we were like, what is this? This is what we are used to seeing in our countries of origin. And to see that on the screen for many of us that were just on the TV watching it or on our phones or computers, we were appalled at what we were seeing on U.S. soil in the nation's capital. And that is what we are ultimately fighting against. Because look, you can be a Democrat, Republican, Independent, but we are a country that always have come together, have been the beacon of hope for the rest of the world, the country that everybody looks up upon and wants to emulate. That is atrocious. That we have people like Maria Elvira Salazar, who I'm running against, who thinks it's okay, who actually says that dead people voted in that election, to not have the respect for our country and for the office of being a congressperson representing the people of the 27th district, and to say such lies for the purpose of keeping a base happy and someone that they continue to follow, which is Donald Trump. Absolutely not okay. That's what this race means. And control of Congress will possibly come down to this race. And if we lose control of Congress, it's not about Democrats having control. It's about the country being able to move forward, because already we are aware of how large the extreme caucus of the Republican Party, the Proud Boys, are already inside the Republican Party of Miami-Dade County, where I'm running, and they are in Congress too. And these are the people that are going to tell McCarthy exactly what to do, and they're going to hold him hostage. And so we are talking about going completely backwards as a country if we do not win this race and keep control of Congress.
Well, with that said, how can we help your campaign?
We are on TV with our commercial. We are in the mailboxes, but just found out yesterday that yes, the Republican Party, the committee that McCarthy puts through, is actually putting dollars in our race, which means they know they know that we are en route to winning this seat back, a seat that we know we can win back. And I will tell you, I need your help financially, because the end of the quarter is coming up. And this is our last report at the end of this month. And we are going to have to make sure that we stay on the air, we stay on the doors, we stay in their mailboxes communicating, because that's how we win. We know we can win this race with once people find out that they have a real fighter of freedom running to represent them.
Annette Taddeo, thank you so much for taking the time, and keep kicking ass on the campaign trail.
Thank you. We will.